Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today I am back with another installment of my best of series, and today is going to be all about Cirque Colors. Now I definitely do have a lot of thoughts on Cirque as a brand that I'm going to be sharing at the end, but for now I do want to just go into the different categories of polishes that they have and share my favorites with you, so let's just get into it. So when it comes to their nail essentials or nail care items, I generally have a positive experience using their products. Like their regular sticky base coat, their smooth ridge filling base coat are great. I do really like their top coats. If anything, my main complaint is that they come with skinny brushes. I'm not sure if they have made the switch over with those, but I kind of wanted to do something a little bit different and just share the products that I actually don't recommend. The first is their paint and peel base coat, which is essentially Cirque's version of a peel off base coat. Now, full disclosure, the first time that I used this was in my advent box video and it was just a mess. It just felt like it didn't dry down. So if you are somebody who has no patience or something, I don't think I would recommend this peel off base coat. It is possible that I did like too thick of a coat because I have seen some people get great results with this, but compared to the Unt Global one that I have, I just prefer that one. And as far as their top coats go, the one that I actually don't recommend is their matte look top coat, which is supposed to be their matte top coat, but I found that this one is more of like a satin finish. Like it doesn't dry down as matte as other top coats, and for me that is just a no. Like if I want matte nails, I want negative shine. I don't want any type of shine at all, and this just was not matte enough for me. And considering the high price points for these products, I just feel like I have to mention that. But again, when it comes to their other base coats and their regular glossy top coat, I really do like those. And if there is one nail care product that I would recommend from Cirque, it's actually their glass crystal file. This one is definitely my favorite of the brands that I've tried because it is just the most gentle. My nails are thin, they are very bendy, they're prone to peeling. So a lot of glass nail files that I've tried are a little bit like too rough, which isn't the worst thing. Like I still keep them because I think they're great for kind of like shaving off a lot of length. But I have noticed if I am trying to be a little bit more careful when it comes to like shaping and stuff, I just really love and recommend this file. I just find it to be like a super high quality and I'm assuming a very high grit. I'm actually not sure if any brand has like the grit for their crystal files. I think I read somewhere that generally crystal files are like the same grit, but they definitely are not. Like personally, I think the Mooncat one is a little too rough, and Holo Taco is kind of like in the middle for me. So the Cirque one is definitely my favorite, and I would recommend this if you do have very like thin, brittle, weak kind of nails. This is worth a shot. So now the first category of polishes I want to go over are, of course, their shimmers. So Cirque shimmers are definitely my favorite from any brand's shimmers. I personally just really love their finish and formula for these, and I do think it is one of Cirque's better finishes that they offer. If you have watched a lot of my videos before, especially my favorite shimmers video, these are going to be familiar, and obviously this is also like a sample of some of my favorites. The very first one that I have is Hygge, which is this absolutely gorgeous powdery blue with this like golden to peachy shifting shimmer. And Cirque's shimmer also has these like super delicate holographic glitters, so it just has this little dainty sparkle that I am such a big fan of. And even though their polishes do have like the skinny brushes, I find that their formulas are just so easy to work with that it's not the worst thing in the world. Like obviously I still would prefer a wide brush for these, but I feel like the formula is just so user friendly. It doesn't dry down too fast, so you can kind of like go over it and like work with it a little bit. If anything, I can also see some people not loving their shimmers because they are definitely pretty sheer. Like They're the type of formulas where you can layer in 3 coats and you still will likely see some nail line, but I actually really love that about them because I think that makes them so versatile. Like you can wear them in 1 coat almost as like a topper, or just for like a subtle wash of color, or obviously build it up in a couple of coats to intensify the color a little bit more. And I especially love using their shimmers for like nail art, where it's kind of like this dreamy, almost watercolor-esque type of style because they are so sheer and can be like blended. So I am just a huge fan of their shimmers, as you probably know. I think Hygge is just such a beautiful color. It is just so soothing, literally living up to the name, which means cozy. Next shimmer that I would absolutely recommend is Fandango, which is this super gorgeous corally peach kind of shade that has this golden shimmer that also shifts to green in extreme angles, and again it has that dainty hollow sparkle. This is just like the prettiest, sparkliest peach. I just love it so much. It is especially one of my favorites for like the spring and summer. Another must-have for me is Say Chic, which is this absolutely stunning hot pink jelly base that has this really bright blue to almost purple kind of shifting shimmer, and then again that dainty hollow sparkle. It is just so fun. Like I love hot pink nails in the summer, and especially jelly nails, and especially if they're sparkly, so this is like the top summer polish for me. This definitely is really sheer, so again, if you aren't a huge fan of that, maybe I would suggest using like a blurring base coat. I just love that like squishy, juicy feel to them. They are like a perfect combination of like shimmers and jellies in a way. But yeah, this one is just especially glowy, like one of my favorite pinks. The next shimmer I have is probably one of the most recent ones. This is Ohana from the Surfer's Crush collection that launched earlier this year, and that collection was basically like this whole shimmer formula. And I love them all, like, well, maybe not all of them. I didn't love Shaka, but that's more so like a color preference thing. But I was just so in love with that collection overall because it's just more of this finish, which I already am obsessed with. But Ohana is just the prettiest, like icy lavender kind of color with a really bright blue aqua kind of shimmer. I have worn this like maybe 3 times this past summer. Just one of those shades that I kept going back to. I thought it was just so beautiful, so glowy, even almost going into like those fairy vibes, which you know that I'm a big fan of. I cannot recommend this one enough. And my last top recommendation is Velvetine, which I know mine is like the itty bitty bottle because I got it from like their advent box, I think a couple of years ago. And this one I would basically call like the moody winter version of Hygge, where they're both like these powdery kind of blues that have that same warm, peachy, golden shimmer. So if you do already have Hygge and love it, I would highly recommend Velvetine, or you know, vice versa. But this one I had shared, I think last year, as one of my winter favorites, and it's definitely one that as soon as I run out of my little bottle, I would repurchase as a full size. It is just so stunning with that base color and the contrast of like that peachy shimmer. It is absolutely gorgeous. You need this one. So you might be wondering about the last polish when I said Velvetine was the last one that I recommend. This one is a shade that I guess I just wouldn't recommend, and I had to talk about it. This one is Fata Morgana, and it's actually what I'm wearing right now. I'm not sure. I don't know. This is actually my first time like giving it a proper try because I don't want to just like throw it out or something. I was disappointed in this one and want to just like put it as a word of warning that this does not live up to the website photos, which was just super disappointing to me because the website photos were so beautiful. Like it's listed as this gray kind of lavender color. It's very noticeably purple in those photos with this like peachy shimmer, which you know I love. And so I was expecting that, and I just was like honestly pissed when I opened my package and I saw this because this is gray. Like there is no purple in here. It just does not look anything like the website photos. And so unfortunately, if you were eyeing that one, just be advised that this is what it actually looks like. The next category I have is Cirque's Shimmergraphics, which is a new finish for them. I think they debuted that finish with the Kelly Marissa collection, where it was like Vegas inspired, and there were a couple of shimmer graphic polishes and then some jelly flakies. And the Shimmergraphics are basically kind of like the shimmers I just showed you, but with the holo turned up to like 15. So since I am a fan of their shimmer formula, I do love this more sparkly version as well. So I do only have 3 recommendations. First one is Pixie Holo from the Far Far Away collection that launched I think just a month ago. It is this really pretty purpley periwinkle shade that has this beautiful shimmer that shifts from green to maybe blue and then like yellow and peach. And obviously there is like all of this holographic sparkle in here. I just think it is so, so beautiful. And you know, I'm just like a fan of these colors where they give off fairy vibes. From the same collection, I have Dragon's Dungeon, which is basically like the opposite vibe as the last shade. This one is this super moody, vampy, violet jelly base that has this shimmer that shifts from blue to red, and again, all of that intense holo sparkle. It is just absolutely enchanting, so mesmerizing. Like if you are a fan of sparkly, glittery kind of nails, you will love pretty much any of their Shimmergraphics, but again, these are my favorites. The last one that I have is actually from the Kelly Marissa collection. This is All In, and I was like debating on including this because I'm not sure if Cirque is going to include the collab polishes as part of the Black Friday sales. I thought, you know, even if they don't include them, this is like one of the standout shades for me. It is this super bright, almost like candy apple kind of lime green in a jelly base that again has this beautiful, like kind of fiery shimmer that's very, not red, but like orangey, copper, and also flashes to gold. Like you guys probably know, I'm not a huge like green lover, but this one is definitely like a new favorite green. I just love how bright it is. It's absolutely beautiful. It might be surprising that I'm picking this one over Flamingo because that one is just my favorite from the collection when it came out, but I just feel like that one was too similar to Fandango. Like you can just wear Fandango and probably layer on like a scattered holo topper and you'll more or less get the same kind of vibe, but at least All In feels just a lot more unique. So this next category is their jelly polishes, and I feel like this is probably the best category that Cirque does offer because they're really like the only brand that offers this like wide range of jelly polishes. I don't even know how many they have exactly, but they've definitely released a lot, especially over the past year, and I personally am just a huge fan of them. I think they have such a gorgeous range of shades, and the jellies themselves are really pretty, but I feel like they have almost like 2 kinds of jellies where they have these milky jellies that are a little bit more opaque. They're obviously sheer on the first coat, but if you do 3 coats of them, they cover a little bit more of your nail line where it's like almost a crelly kind of polish. And then they have the very true like traditional jelly polishes where even if you do 7 coats or something, you're still gonna see through to your nail line. Like it's not gonna cover it up at all. Overall, I just think you can't go wrong with them because they are just such fun, versatile shades to have to either wear on their own or with some nail art. So the first 2 I have, I think I shared in my favorite pinks video not too long ago, and they are Chiffon and Rosewater. And these 2 are like my favorite sheer pinks when it comes to Cirque's line. So I would say that Cirque's Chiffon is kind of like the typical sheer milky pink polish, similar to like Essie's ballet slippers or OPI's bubble bath. One definitely has more of a milky kind of quality to it, and I have gone through several bottles of this one. It is just my go-to for any sort of sheer like negative space look. Whenever I have something that has a slightly pinkish base, this is what I'm wearing. I just find it to be super flattering on me. So yeah, this just feels like a staple Purple. And the other one is Rosewater Jelly, which came out earlier this year. And this one is more of a cool toned pink jelly. It's almost like an orchid pink actually, because I feel like it really toes the line between being pink and purple. And this one is more of like a true jelly finish where it is much more squishy looking. Like if you were to do 2 coats of both of these, you definitely would get more coverage with chiffon. But I love Rosewater Jelly because I feel like having that little bit of purple just perfectly counteracts any kind of like staining that you might have, which you know that I suffer from. It just adds this like beautiful and bright wash of color to your nails where it's kind of like your nails but better looking. I think this is just such a perfect shade to kind of freshen up your nails. The next jelly I absolutely recommend is Morningtide. It is just the prettiest like cornflower blue jelly. It's borderline periwinkle too. I just think it is such a soothing color. It is so pretty. This one is a little bit more on the milky side too, so when I wear it in 3 coats I feel like it obscures my nail line a little bit more. I especially love using this in like some jelly blended nail art. It is just such a pretty shade of blue. Definitely like one of my favorite shades to wear, especially for the spring. The next one I have is Jade Jelly, which is their jade colored jelly polish. I absolutely adore this one. I think it is just such a beautiful, unique shade of green, and having it in this super squishy finish is just so freaking pretty, so elegant. Mine does have an awful brush where it is just so wonky. I really should have emailed them about that when I first got it in to see if I can get it replaced, because I'm pretty sure Cirque does that. But aside from that, the color is just so soothing. I just love this shade so much, either on its own or obviously alluding to the name, this is so perfect to use for like jade nail art. You can pretty much do any type of like gemstone nail art with like any of their jellies. Like I think Morningtide would be so perfect for this like blue lace agate kind of look. But yeah, this green is just absolutely stunning. The next one I have is another one that is like part of a collab shade, so I'm honestly not sure if it would be, you know, discount eligible. Even if it isn't, I highly recommend Fuyū Jelly. It's like almost this papaya kind of shade. It's like a really warm peach. It is just so beautiful. It had come out with an orange jelly called Saffron Jelly earlier this year, which I think is also absolutely gorgeous, but this one just feels so much more unique to me, and it is so flattering on the nails, I think. So I would highly recommend it before it's like sold out, because I'm pretty sure this is a part of the limited edition MXM Tune collab. It was just such a surprise favorite. This next one is the most recent jelly added to my collection, and this is Indigo Jelly that they brought back with the Shibori set. And this is just a super deep, like navy, almost royal blue kind of color, or as I learned, it is like the traditional indigo dye color, which makes a lot of sense considering it's part of the Shibori nail art that is like inspired by this tie-dye using indigo. But yeah, it is just such a beautiful color on its own, and again, so fun to use in nail art. This paired with Morningtide creates such a beautiful like smoky blue sort of look. I just have been craving these deeper, almost like jewel tone jellies from Cirque, and I'm just so happy that they brought this one back. And the last jelly that I would absolutely recommend is Verdigris jelly, which is from, I think, their holiday collection last year. It is like this really deep teal. Yeah, like it's green, but there's definitely a heavy blue undertone in it. And I, again, just think it is so unique. Like, I don't even think I have a color like this in like a cream in my collection. So having this as a jelly is just so perfect, especially for the winter time, because personally, I really love wearing jellies in the spring or the summer. Them coming out with this shade just made me realize like, oh my gosh, I can definitely still wear jellies in the winter season with colors like this or with indigo jelly. So this one is absolutely beautiful. So next up we have their toppers, and Cirque definitely has like a decent amount where they have these really fine sort of dainty toppers, but then they also have these fun chunky glitter mixes. I think generally you can't go wrong with whatever you choose from their toppers. Like, just go with whatever your favorite color is or the favorite style of their glitters. But as far as my favorites go, probably to no one's surprise, the first one I have is Crystal Tokyo, and it is just the prettiest, most dreamy, ethereal mix of these iridescent pink glitters. It just has this beautiful glowing effect where it kind of reminds me of like those little translucent beads in jewelry or something. It is just such a pretty topper. Like, I love wearing this in one coat over chiffon. It's also just super cute layered over any of the other jellies, even as like a glitter gradient or a jelly sandwich. This is like a must-have for my collection. And then from their dainty kind of toppers, my favorite one is Nectar, and it is this super finely milled golden shimmer almost. Just adds such a pretty glow to your nails. Like, it's a lot more fine than a traditional like gold flaky topper. I feel like it just makes it even more elegant. The gold shimmer in this one too is just a shimmer. Like, there's no holographic sparkle, but it is still very sparkly. And I really love that. Like, I know some people have mentioned before that they're just like tired of holo being in everything. I guess technically my favorite shimmer topper from Cirque is Nimbus, but that one is not available anymore. But it's basically like the silver version of this one. I don't know why they haven't brought anything like that back. I guess maybe more people just prefer a holo silver topper to just a regular silver one. But Nectar and Rose All Day are so pretty. So moving on to their creams, Cirque has a pretty decent amount of creams in their catalog, but I feel like a lot of them are older shades. Like, they don't really release creams as often anymore. And it is kind of a shame because I feel like their cream formulas are absolutely beautiful, even with the skinny brushes. And the colors themselves I think are really pretty, but the three that I love the most and would definitely recommend start with Matcha, and this came out earlier this year in the Gourmand collection, along with other shades like Rosewater Jelly and Saffron Jelly that I mentioned. This is just an absolutely vibrant lime green cream that has such a rich, creamy formula. I don't love that it comes with a skinny brush, but I feel like the formulas are so buttery smooth that they're just like still easy to work with. And it's really just the color on this one is so unlike other lime greens in my collection. It is just absolutely beautiful. And I also love the name because I have become a matcha girl this year. So this just really speaks to me. The next cream I have is Arabesque, and this is this beautiful orangey terracotta color that I love for the fall. Like, this is the kind of shade that I have just been craving this season. This came out several years ago too, but it is just one that I always like think about whenever the weather starts to cool down. I just think it's so cozy, so flattering, and super unique to my collection. Like, I cannot get enough of this color. Last cream that I have is Rockaway, and I shared this one in my favorite greens video a while back, and it is like this super dusty, almost like celadon kind of color. I'm not sure if that's like the most accurate way to describe it, but I feel like it's one of those greens that does have this blue sort of undertone to it, but it's a lot more dusty and muted, so it's not really like teal by any means. It's just so incredibly unique, absolutely beautiful, and I especially love this one for this time of year as well. So the next category I have is their metallic type of shades, and I have the trifecta, as I would call them. First one is 24K Affair, and I have this little bitty bottle from the Advent box. It was my first time trying this gold, and I fell in love right away. It is just like the perfect tone. I know I can definitely be picky with certain shades, like not finding them flattering on me, and especially when it comes to golds, like they really can be so hit or miss. This one is just so pretty. Like, I love the tone that it is. It has such a beautiful formula where it's not really like a true metallic that's very like brushstrokey and like metally looking. I guess this one is more of like a shimmery metallic, if that makes sense. It just has such a beautiful sparkle, and I know I'm gonna be loving this gold for the holiday season. If you're not into gold at all though, and you want a silver option, I would recommend Reflektor. Again, it just has more of that like larger shimmer particle. So it's almost like a foily type of look. It is just super beautiful. Like I love this finish so much from Cirque. And I especially love this one because I have been using it as a base for some of my jellies. I think it's just such a fun way to wear jellies in the winter because you have this like super sparkly base where it almost kind of has like a velvet effect with like magnetic polishes. So if you're too lazy for magnetics or something, I would recommend having a sparkly base to layer your jellies on top of, and this one is perfect for that. And then probably the most iconic of the three is Halcyon, and this is the rose gold version. I'm sure you can tell from the bottle, but mine is super old. Like I got it maybe in 2015 or something, but it is just such an intense rose gold metallic. Like it is so shiny and reflective, not reflective like reflective glitter, but just like mirror like shine. It's just super beautiful, especially as like accents for nail art. I cannot get over them. And the last category that I have for Cirque is their magnetics. So you probably heard me talk about their magnetic polishes a couple of times very recently, where I feel like generally I have been a little bit harsher towards Cirque's magnetics. Like I just don't love them as much as other brands because in my opinion, they just feel a little bit more flat, mainly because they are just like these jelly based magnetics with just magnetic shimmer. Like there's no extra hollow sparkle or like flaky. So if you've watched my other best of videos, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I just have a preference towards like having a little bit more sparkle, but that extra sparkle really only shows up when you do like a cat eye effect. And I always talk about how I prefer doing velvet nails. And honestly, I feel like Cirque is one of the best brands when it comes to magnetics for velvet nails. Because they have a jelly base, the magnetic shimmer is able to move around a bit more freely and easily compared to if you were to use a magnetic with a more pigmented base or even with a thicker formula. It just makes it harder for the magnetic shimmer to move around. But because jellies are just by nature like super squishy, they really offer like the perfect kind of base for those shimmers to really glow. So if you've been struggling with doing velvet nails, I definitely would recommend some of Cirque's magnetics, starting with probably one of their most popular ones called Mood Ring. And it is just this absolutely breathtaking multi-chrome magnetic that shifts from green to aqua to darker blue, maybe even like purple in extreme angles. It is just absolutely magical. It's really like that quintessential like mood ring kind of color. And as you guys probably know, I am not the biggest fan of multi-chromes, but the color shift in this one is just out of this world, so freaking beautiful. I feel like these next two should go hand in hand because they kind of feel like cousins to me. The first one is Paradox, which I think is maybe another super popular Cirque magnetic in that similar kind of multi-chrome formula as Mood Ring. This one has a super deep, juicy, kind of like violet purple base color with a multi-chrome shimmer that shifts from blue head on to purple and magenta, and there's even like flashes of gold in the corners of the bottle. It is just another super shifty shade that, again, I love the color shift for. So this one and Mood Ring are definitely like the top two favorites when it comes to the multi-chrome magnetics. But if you're not really a fan of multi-chromes, then another one I absolutely adore is Cassiopeia, which actually came out earlier this year in the Heavenly Bodies collection. This one has another super beautiful purple base color, and this one just has a pretty much straightforward like blue shimmer, but it just looks absolutely stunning, especially with a velvet effect. It is just so plush, super gorgeous, and this one is especially pretty for the winter time. And from the same collection, I have Delphinus, which is this super unique teal kind of base color that has this multi-chrome sort of shimmer that kind of shifts from like gold to pink maybe. I'm not exactly sure, but I just think it is one of the most unique sort of color combinations, especially that I have in my collection. This was like a surprise favorite when I tried it on because it didn't really stand out to me in the bottle, but it is just such a beautiful, beautiful color. And the last magnetic I have is Eye of the Beholder, and this is just a stunning, deep, rich brownish red, like maroon kind of shade that has this super intense shimmer that shifts from like this brighter fiery red to this copper and then gold. But it's overall just a very like rich fiery kind of color that I think perfectly looks like tiger's eye, which I think is so beautiful, so cool to have on your nails. It is just so fun with these color shifts. So that wraps up my best of Cirque Colors. So hopefully you enjoyed my picks, and hopefully there are some favorites that we have in common. Make sure to let me know about that down below. Before wrapping up the video, I of course have to talk about some issues that Cirque has faced, especially over the last like year and a half, because that's when I started noticing like they've been on this downward trend. And it honestly really is such a shame, because they're a brand that I have loved for a lot of years. Like, I love their polishes. I think they are so beautiful. I love their brand values and what they stand for, the charity polishes that they put out. Like, there are a lot of good things about Cirque, but like I kind of hinted at in certain parts of my video, there are just some issues that I feel like they shouldn't be having, especially as a brand that has been around for as long as they have. I'm not sure how long this is gonna get or how deep I'm gonna go into it. I really don't want this to become like drama or anything like that, but at least to talk about some of the things that I noticed that started making me kind of like side-eye them. Started last year with their bubbly collection, and I talked about this in my nail polish awards video last year. My biggest issue with that collection was the egregious photoshopping that they did. Like, the holographic magnetics were made to look super rainbowy, but that is just not what you got. And it just was such a shame to see how bad they edited the photos. To me, I'm just like, this is false advertising. Like, these polishes do not look like this at all. And it was just so disappointing to see that. And I feel like that's just generally an issue that Cirque has had and like continues to have with their website swatch photos. I think they just edit them too much to the point that it skews the colors. And I know that they have this like disclaimer or whatever that colors can look different depending on like the monitor, but it's an issue that I have had several times myself as a customer when I've ordered polishes from Cirque that end up looking nothing like the website photos, even though I like cross-reference between my phone, my iPad, even like my boyfriend's computers. Like, I'm trying to make sure like, okay, the color is looking the same. The main culprit of today's video was Fata Morgana, where it just looks like a nude gray sort of taupe shade. And like, you know, maybe sure it is pretty, but it's like, this is not the color that I was expecting to get. And I feel like that just happens way too often with Cirque. And I know it's nothing to do with the swatchers, because the swatchers do not edit the photos themselves. Like, they just paint their nails and send them to Cirque. I know this because I have seen the photos that the swatchers will post on their own social media and compare it to the website photos, and it's just crazy. I know other brands have been guilty of having like misleading swatch photos as well, and they've got a lot of heat for it before and eventually changed their practices or like provided even more photos that were more realistic. So I really hope that Cirque follows suit, because it's just bad. There's also the issue last year with the thermal collection that is like the collection we don't talk about on my channel. This was not at the quality that it should have been. And I believe before launching the thermals, they had their price increase. And it wasn't just them, it was like a lot of brands that were issuing out these price increases, but the way that Cirque went about it was just not great, because they only mentioned it in one newsletter that a lot of people just did not see, because it shows up in like the promotional folder of their emails. And this was during the time when, again, other brands were also increasing their prices, but not only did they send emails, they were also breaking down everything in their stories and like their social media in general. And there was just none of that from Cirque. So I feel like there's been a few times that they fail to communicate things properly, especially when it is something as important as a price increase, because Cirque was already a pricey brand. Like, their bottles are 11 milliliters, so they are the smallest out of all the other boutique brands. With their price increase, they are the most expensive out of the boutique brands. Obviously, pricing is subjective, so if you think that they are worth it for the size, you know, go for it. But I just don't love how they went about doing that. And most recently, there was the whole issue with their lucky bags. I don't even know how long ago it was at this point, maybe like in the last 2 months, Cirque had this lucky bag offer on their website where I think if you paid like $25, you basically get this like mystery bag of polishes. And a lot of people, especially if you are on Reddit, you probably saw this, were getting a lot of duplicates. It's such a shame because when I first heard about it, my first thought was like, oh, but I'm sure Cirque already had like the fine print of, you know, you might get duplicates. It's like not guaranteed that every shade is gonna be unique or whatever. You know, the typical brand disclosures to kind of like cover themselves. But I think it was just so bad that they offered that as a product in general because they didn't have a huge selection of shades that were going to be pulled from for these lucky bags. It just was like a big mess, and Cirque did not really respond to it well. And unfortunately, I feel like that has been an issue that I've seen with them, where it's like their customer service just kind of lacks, especially in comparison to other boutique brands, where if you're not happy with your order, these other brands will like jump to make it right. But more often than not, I feel like with Cirque, it's almost like, sorry, you know. But I even got a video recommendation from one of Cirque's customers, like fully breaking down what this fiasco was like all about and how Cirque messed up. I'll have that linked in the cards if you do want to watch that. I feel like Cirque could have easily avoided so many of these like little issues. I just don't agree with a lot of these like business decisions that they have made. Like, I saw on Reddit so many people were put off from trying them, and I get it. I mean, it definitely is not a good look the way that Cirque responded to everything. I do think it is a little far that some people were like trying to boycott Cirque or even like put together a class action lawsuit, because ultimately when it comes to lucky bags, Cirque is not the first brand to do that. And maybe it is unfair because it's like I have been a fan of Cirque for years, and so like you just know what to expect, where they have done these sales before that's either like, you know, you get a mystery polish when you order 3 or, you know, something like that. And it's just so obvious that the mystery polishes are older polishes that they still have in stock that have not sold out the way that they thought that they would. Obviously, it would be amazing if you got Hygge as one of your mystery polishes, but I would not expect that in a million years from Cirque. At this point, they have kind of proven to just get rid of their old stock through those types of sales, which is why I wouldn't recommend participating in those sales unless you know you have a chance of getting like these ugly polishes that just haven't sold. And ultimately, after all of the bad things that they have done or failed to do, I just don't think any of it is bad enough to boycott them over when they're actually like worse brands that have owners with harmful beliefs who have never apologized. You know what I mean? So it's like, if you're gonna boycott Cirque, I really hope that you're boycotting a lot of other brands that actually shouldn't be supported. So that's my piece on the whole situation. I do still think Cirque has some absolutely beautiful polishes that are worth trying. So if you do want to try them out and support me at the same time, you can use my code PolishedYogi for 10% off. Maybe it's a weird time to plug my code, but if you use it, thank you so much. And of course, thank you to everyone who has used it because it is a one-time use code. But yeah, I would love to know your thoughts on Cirque Colors and my picks for my favorites. Whether you haven't tried them before, or especially if you are a longtime fan, let me know if you've also noticed these kind of like downward trends. Like, you know, I'm not trying to be dramatic or anything, but I just have noticed a lot of comments on my Cirque review videos that people just have not really been feeling them lately, and I totally get it. I mean, I definitely have been enjoying like the more recent collections because they just are, you know, these shimmers, Shimmergraphics, jellies, like the finishes that I enjoy. I can also see them being like repetitive and stuff. So you'll have to let me know any and all thoughts that you have down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.